Hey everybody, it's Joe Pro, and today, finally, we're gonna be ranking every Paper Mario game. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm pretty vocal about these charming games, and while I am less than loving to some of them, I appreciate that pretty much every installment in the series has its share of dedicated fans. Yeah, even this one, somehow. Apparently, you guys do exist. Note that I am including the Thousand Year Doors remake as its own entry, and so there will be 7 games in the ranking. If you want to see me rank the 43 chapters, I did that in great detail in another video. Before we begin, remember, this is all my opinion. A few of my placements are a little whack, to say the least, so please be gentle with me. Please. With all that said, let's rank some Paper Mario. All the way down in 7th place is, without a doubt, Super Paper Mario. The real last place entry is clearly Sticker Star. Like many series fans, I'm generally repulsed by the game and really don't enjoy talking about it. I'd rather talk about the games I love, you know? And I've also been getting some heat lately for being derogatory towards aspects of the series I don't like, so I'm gonna try to be positive about Sticker Star for once. Okay, here we go. Alright, I got this, Joe Pro, I've got this. We're thinking positive, it's easy. Alright, here we are. I'm positive that Sticker Star is the worst Mario game I've ever played. Phew, okay, that wasn't so bad. Here's the thing about Sticker Star. It's not just a bad Paper Mario game, it's a bad game, and that's primarily driven by its design philosophy that seems to actively hate the player. Yeah, I wish it had partners, experience points, unique NPCs instead of generic toads, and that Bowser had dialogue. To be a peak Paper Mario game, it would need some of those elements, but I'm not gonna say it's in last place for trying something new. The problem with Sticker Star is that even if it had those things, it still wouldn't be fun. It's not fun in any sense. It's actually unfun. The battle system and sticker mechanic are pretty bad, but the pinnacle issue for me are the thing stickers. Not knowing when or how to use them, using them wrong and wasting them, backtracking to get them, it's all so bad. The bosses are either impossibly difficult or mind-numbingly easy, depending on if you use the right sticker or not. That's not gameplay, that's just Paper Mario, you're constantly checking an online guide the game. It's as if the game punishes you for trying to engage with it. I think the original vision for 3DS Paper Mario was extremely promising and would have ranked way higher. It's a crying shame it never saw the light of day. I've mentioned this before, but Chaga Conroy has the most excellent deep dive into Sticker Star we'll ever see, and he summarizes my thoughts well. The game design feels unpolished and as if it's been engineered to intentionally frustrate the player. The forest world of Chapter 3 is the most excruciating to play through, with its 12 levels that have to be backtracked numerous times to discover secret exits and even exits that are directly next to each other, forcing you to replay a course for literally no reason. In fact, 31% of Sticker Star's levels are in this single chapter. That's insane. But I'm not gonna hate on this game any longer. I know you'd all rather hear me speak positively about the series, and I'm not here to change anyone's mind about Sticker Star. I will say it does have a pretty great soundtrack, the visuals are gorgeous on the 3DS, I love the Enigma Mansion level as well as most of World 4, and it's an all-around charming game like every other title in the series. I think that's the one place the series consistently shines. They're all charming adventures and very cute, pleasant games. While planning for this video, there were only 2 games I was 100% confident I already knew what their rankings would be. Sticker Star was the easy choice for dead last, and Color Splash would be next on the chopping block. Let me be clear, Color Splash is a massive improvement over Sticker Star. While things still exist in the form of thing cards, the design choices didn't result in as much of a need for trial and error guesswork, using online guides, and endless frustration. It's also a gorgeous game with beautiful locations to explore, has better boss battles, and Huey is my favorite companion character of the modern trilogy. God, Kirsty was so vile I forgot to even mention her in the last segment, but good. She sucks. I think Color Splash has the funniest dialogue of the series with some surprisingly clever moments. The music is once again fantastic, as it is in every entry of the series. Cherry Lake and Fortune Island are two standouts, but there are no shortages of bangers to be found. Unfortunately, the game at the time signaled Nintendo's continued commitment to departing from the series' roots. As such, a map screen is utilized rather than an explorable world, and experience points, badges, and partners continue to be absent. The story isn't exactly high stakes or groundbreaking, and nowhere near compares to the outstanding heights of TTYD and Super Paper Mario, but at least Bowser spoke this time. That's cool, I guess. Man, I'm really trying to find good things about this game, but it ain't easy. They don't make it easy on me. The chapters are hit or miss. I enjoy the blue and purple paint stars well enough, and there are a handful of really fun levels, but they're interrupted constantly by a horrendous battle system. Again, I don't mind change. I don't need every installment to copy and paste TTYD's mechanics, but come on. Battling in Color Splash takes forever. You gotta find the card, set up the card, paint the card, swipe the card, and do the card stuff to the bad guy, and the card works or doesn't work, and then you got a card. Oh, it takes forever and causes battles to seem like a form of capital punishment. I do like that the enemy's health meter is represented by them losing color, though. That's a super cool battle mechanic, and it's nice to see the Koopalings in an RPG. See, I like something. I'm trying. There really isn't much else to say about Color Splash. Unlike Sticker Star, it isn't a terrible game. It's not particularly good, and I'm in no rush to replay it again, but I've beat it 3 times and I wasn't too miserable. It was a step in the right direction, and one that paved the way for Origami King to continue demonstrating improvement. Alright then, the top 5. But, oh lord, y'all are gonna murder me for this. Let's get this over with. So, during my recent series replay, I was curious to see if I'd end up preferring Origami King or Super Paper Mario. I had never played them back to back before, and I hadn't played Origami King since restarting my YouTube channel last year. I've always enjoyed both Origami and Super, and historically Super Paper Mario has been my favorite of these two by a slim margin. Well, I ended up playing these two games simultaneously, which was kind of fun. I'd play one chapter in Super and then one chapter in Origami King, back and forth until I finished both. It was cool. Going back and forth gave me insight into which game I preferred, and yeah, Origami King is the better game here. So all that to say, Super Paper Mario is my 5th favorite game, but really it's 4th if you count the TTYDs together. Again, please don't hate me, let me explain. I always loved Super Paper Mario. Upon its release in 2007, it was fresh and new. I was a young kid, and I think it may have actually been my favorite for a year or so. The hype I had leading up to its release was ridiculous. As time went on, I liked it less and less. Replaying it felt like a chore due to the numerous levels that recklessly torment the player. The obvious examples being the slave labor in Merle's Mansion, the repetition of Sammer's Kingdom, and worst of all, the over there stare. While I still adore the magnificent story, wonderfully unique characters, and top-tier music, I can't get behind the burden of the gameplay. I'll focus in on the positives a bit more before I break down the gameplay, though. The highlight of this installment is certainly the story. It's a high-stakes adventure that sees Mario attempt to save the world from the tragic character Count Bleck. Bleck and his allies are so awesome, both in their visual design, characterization, and witty dialogue. Their motives and portrayals come together quite impressively, and the story beats with them are always interesting. The twists and turns of the ambitious story are fascinating to see play out, and I respect this game for departing further from the Mario universe than any other Mario game before or since. The writers had the bravery to tell a bold, dark story of romance and tragedy, complete with a rich cast of characters and impressive world building. The Dimensional Void is a harrowing reminder of the impending doom coming for every character you meet. Like in Majora's Mask, it makes the locations and characters feel more connected than they would otherwise, especially since the areas are gained access to by doors rather than seamless exploration. Again, the music is outstanding. Gloam Valley, the Underwear, and the Bitlands are all great. Flipside is iconic, and there's some really emotional pieces too, like Soft Light and the Over There Shrine. Then of course there's the absolute banger, The Ultimate Show, which plays during the climactic final boss, and there are many other outstanding boss themes. Well, that's pretty much my summary of the good. From there, things begin to falter a bit. My criticisms of the game can be organized into 4 independent categories: the combat, the visuals, the pixels, the level design. And I've arranged these into order of what I think is least to most problematic for the game. Jumping into the combat, again, I'm fine with the series trying something new. While I of course prefer the turn-based strategy of the first 2 games, I don't hate the concept of removing it altogether. Heck, Color Splash would be a great game if it threw out its battle system. The choice was bold, but not the issue. The real problem is how it turns most bosses and enemies into a pushover. Seriously though, in my recent playthrough, I easily dispatched Mimi in Chapter 2 without her attacking me even once, and the same can be done for Bonechill. Even Count Bleck can be quickly exterminated. In general, you can rush through each chapter in very little time thanks to the simple encounters quickening the pacing, and so it seems the developers compensated for this by adding in an abundance of filler tasks, but we'll get to those later. So, in summary, the issue isn't necessarily the lack of a turn-based battle system, but it's in the poor execution of its replacement. The combat here isn't very fun, has very little depth, it's too easy to cheese, and it really isn't all that engaging. The second problem, the visuals. I'm going to be candid, the visuals are pretty gross in my opinion. Sure, art is subjective, but TTYD looked better in 2004 than Super did in 2007, and I don't think that should be a controversial take. I'm not talking about the resolution here, but rather the art style and apparent lack of effort. Locations like the Underwear look pretty great, but most of the game looks like it was developed in Adobe Flash or something. Very simple, plain designs are everywhere, and there's a severe lack of detail on the environment. God, I hate how the red star doors are used. I'm in the middle of a desert and there's these random doors everywhere. Why are they here? Why don't they have a desert theme to them? Heck, even Paper Mario 64 looks better than Super. I mean, name one location in Super Paper Mario that looks as good as Shooting Star Summit or Mount Lava Lava. Sure, Super is presented mostly in 2D, but in 3D, the environments look even worse. They're just ugly. I'm sorry it's harsh, but it's true, for me at least. Fortunately, there are some characters that spruce the place up with their sexy designs. You've got your Mimis, your Nastasias, your Merlins, your Francises, your Dementios, your Blumiers, your Ochunkses. All very beautiful, all very sexy. But most characters are rather simply designed and lack detail, especially those that are just random shapes stacked together. In concept, the new designs are pretty neat, but I can't say I prefer them as much as designs from the older games. Also, Mario, pull your cap up, homie. You look ugly as hell in this game, my dude. In summary, the visuals, like the combat, aren't really a deal breaker, but I would have preferred if I could have engaged in both a bit more. A remake, of course, could mostly solve this critique. The pixels. Yeah, of course, I love traditional partners, but once again, I'm fine with a slight departure to try something new. The pixels were intended to fill this role, but fail spectacularly. Tippy is fantastic, of course, but the others speak only when initially found and then never again. It's awful. The dialogue they do have after being located isn't even that great or impactful either, and they just silently exist. Their personalities are all blurred together with no clear standouts, at least none I've taken note of, and they have no story arcs or significant moments. Compare them to, say, Vivian or Lady Bow. Those wonderful women are vibrant characters with motivations, fears, and struggles, but these things are just a cluster of pixels, literally. And sure, your true party members are Peach, Bowser, and Luigi, and they're all characterized fantastically, no doubt, but even so, I wish we could have seen a bit more development into our new little accomplices. And at last, the big one, the huge one, the level design. If it were only for the above topics, I'd probably still rate Super above Origami King, but I just can't do so in good faith. Similarly to Sticker Star, it feels like some of the moments in Super exist to just frustrate the player, to grind the pacing to a stop, you know? Again, subjective, perhaps, and I know some of you don't mind the pain, but I just don't think some of these levels are very fun. I'll limit my discussion to just 5 quick examples. 1. Grinding for rubies in Merle's Mansion by running in one direction for 10 minutes unless you look up the code on a guide or have played the game before, and if you do that, the level takes like 4 minutes to beat. It's lame, this isn't good gameplay.
Actually, I love it. Oh, it's so good. Ooh, I love it. I love it.
2. Outer Space's layout is uninspired. The Woe Zone is fantastic, admittedly, but the space levels are just redundant, side-scrolling mazes. 3. Sammer's Kingdom. I get it. The story moments here are phenomenal. This is absolutely valid. That's actually the frustrating thing about this game for me. The story is so fantastic, but it's hampered by redundant gameplay. The ironic part is the gameplay seems to often be so redundant in service of the plot. Like, doing enemy encounter after enemy encounter serves to make the ticking time bomb of the void that much more tense and urgent. It's supposed to be frustrating. The slave labor stuff in Merle's Mansion serves to make the player feel enslaved and trapped, isolated, to despise Mimi. I understand all these things and respect them, but it doesn't make me like the gameplay anymore. Running in a straight line through a white abyss for several minutes just isn't engaging for me, at least not on repeat playthroughs. 4. The Over There Stare. I hate it. This one doesn't even serve the story, it's just bad game design. The task, of course, is to find the right colored apple to save Princess Peach. Doing so will mean exploring this vast platforming area. The problem is that the screens and environment all look the same, so it's just a confusing mess of boring exploration. 5. The backtracking. Land of the Cragnons has it really bad with the whole code thing you gotta do. Planet Blobule has it, and 7-2 has it particularly badly. Stupid old hags, they can go to hell. Oh wait, they're already there. Good. Great. Yeah. The levels that aren't that annoying still aren't particularly great. I mean, compare 1-4 to Hooktail's Castle or Koopa Brothers Fortress. They're all introductory dungeons, but the latter two are vast with unique areas and puzzles. Super's first dungeon contains rooms that all look the same, play similarly, and the layout isn't anything special. Merle's Mansion's maze in 2-4 is bland as well. Even the interludes aren't great. I mean, most of them are just walking down a straight hallway and a Castle Black corridor and then watching a story scene. Compare these to Peach's sweet moments with TEC and the undercover stealth mission in her castle in the first game. I mean, come on. I will say the Woe Zone is great, Fort Francis isn't bad, and Castle Black is really fantastic. That is a great chapter. There are some truly solid gameplay segments in the game, but they are certainly interrupted by the bad. Wow, I did not plan on talking about Super for that long, but here we are. If you're still here, despite my criticisms and complaints, I appreciate you. I know it's not a popular opinion that I have, but hey, it's how I feel. Super is absolutely not a bad game. It's probably even good, but it's far from the masterpiece some call it, in my opinion. If you disagree, that's great. I am happy for you and happy that you love the game. The story is incredible after all, and I still love listening to the soundtrack. It's good stuff. Paper Mario: The Origami King was certainly divisive, with some fans calling it top tier and others maligning its very existence. I'll be honest, I was furious after its initial unveiling. It yet again represented Nintendo's refusal to return to form. Sure, it had a more connected world, some semblance of partners, and an improved story, but I could tell those changes were only half steps, and the battle system still appeared annoying and tedious. Well, the game released, and I was mostly unhappy with it. Sure, I enjoyed many of the fun scenarios, new characters, and the undeniable charm, but the negatives outweighed the positives. For me, it was only a step above Color Splash. I've now played it 3 times, and I've gotta say, with each replay I like it more and more. And that is why Origami King finds itself ranked number 4. It's crazy that it somehow is my favorite in the series outside of the first 2 games, but I can't lie, it's really grown on me. Let's talk some details. We'll start with the good stuff. The soundtrack, outstanding. My favorite tracks are Sniff City, Disco Devil, and actually pretty much all of the other boss music. It's great. It also introduces battle music that changes depending on which area you're in. This clever addition has now made its way over to TTYD, and it's brilliant. Visually, this is Paper Mario at its most detailed. While it may be a bit too colorful for my liking, the landscapes are breathtaking. Autumn Mountain and Shangri Spa are especially tantalizing. The folded soldiers are cute and crafty, and the papercraft feel of everything is quite impressive. It should be said, I still don't like the characters' white outlines. It makes them look more like stickers and less like paper, and I still do prefer the games where paper is less of a focus, but I can nonetheless appreciate what the developers did here visually. It's very nice on the eyes. The choppier animation style isn't really my thing either, but I'm not losing sleep over it. The game's beautiful. So artistically, the game is commendable, but what else is there to love? Well, the unique scenarios are an absolute blast in this game, perhaps more so than any other title in the series other than maybe Thousand Year Door. Going to a canned food party? Hilarious. Healing Bowser Jr. at various hot baths? So silly. There's fiesta, and there's a fiesta in Bowser's Castle. I want to be a part of that. And also, saving the Hole Punch Toads by blasting their favorite song is one of my favorite moments in the series. It's so cute. All of these scenarios and more are ridiculously charming and raise this game to near peak potential. The level design is up there with Paper Mario 64 as the series' best. The dungeons are great. It's so fun to find all of the secrets in this sprawling world, and the locations are mostly directly connected rather than being accessed by pipes or a world map like every other game besides 64. There are loads of verticality and dynamic layouts to move around in. The levels rarely feel repetitive or bland. The desert and Great Sea are a bit bloated and vacant. To be fair, but I'd be cool with those being smaller, but it's only a minor nitpick. It's nice to see some personality in the allies, even if they aren't legitimate partners. Bobby's story and sacrifice are touching. He's an incredible character, and I only wish that every chapter had a dedicated partner, and that they were all as great as Bobby. Well, Kamek is pretty great too. Thankfully, many of the NPCs are more than just generic toads. While they aren't as unique and detailed as the first trilogy, it's a nice step in the right direction. Lastly, the story is quite solid for a modern trilogy title. The primary storyline revolving around King Ollie rebranding the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom into origami is great. His villain motivation is basically that he's just racist. Kinda wild for a kid's game when you think about it. The story isn't as epic or mature as some other installments, but it's still an exciting storyline that contains plenty of twists and turns. I'm not a huge fan of Olivia. She's fine, I guess, but her connection to Ollie is impactful and a bit emotional at the end. The story really gets great with the involvement of the origami craftsman, and the final cutscenes are surprisingly poignant. Overall, I think the broad strokes of Origami King, minus its battle system, are fantastic. With a superficial glance, it may seem like the ultimate Paper Mario game, and I'm thankful I've warmed up to it over the years. Unfortunately, when taking a deeper look at the adventure, the paper begins to crumple. Let's take a look at some of the shreds. The elephant in the room, naturally, is the battle system. While it's certainly an improvement over Color Splash, it's not great. I actually enjoy the puzzles and thinking through the possible ring rotations, but it's the tediousness that's irritating. I'll be out here enjoying the overworld design, talking to the NPCs, and next thing you know, I get sucked into a forced battle. It grinds the gameplay to a freeze, and they're just boring. Gone are the quick encounters of the first trilogy, replaced with a bloated system of mechanics the game forces you to engage with, often unwillingly. In theory, the ring system isn't even that bad, but the execution is abysmal. For one, you're timed, which can make it difficult to perfectly optimize your strategy. Second, the battles seem designed so that if you complete the puzzle correctly, you can take out every enemy in one go. I say this because if there are 3 lines of enemies, the game gives you 3 attacks. If there's 1 line of enemies, you get 1 attack. The problem is some enemies take more than a single attack even with the better weapons, so these can cause you to have to do a puzzle, do 2 to 3 attacks, then do a puzzle again, and attack again. And if it's a wave battle, you're really screwed. Have fun repetitiously doing ring puzzles followed by several rounds of attacking and defending. Just kidding, it's not fun. You won't have fun. Okay, well maybe you will have fun, but you over there and me and that other guy, we won't be having a good time. And if you'd rather just not play, running from battle rarely works and just wastes more of your time. It seems to randomly decide if you get to succeed or not, with no visual indication otherwise. Of course, the allies are controlled automatically in combat. Sometimes they help, sometimes they do nothing and just stand around there, and other times they take out one enemy, which makes absolutely no difference to your overall ring strategy. Finally, the boss battles. Ugh, they're the absolute worst of the battle system. I'm sure you've played the game, so I won't detail the distinctions of the boss battles from the regular, but each has a different strategy of warfare that you can't really pick up on when the battle first starts. Ultimately, you gain an understanding of the unique strat required by picking up treasure chest hints and doing the wrong thing so that Olivia will correct you with her precious insight. The diversity in required strategy is a great concept, but it's the trial and error bullcrap that ruins the appeal. There's pretty much no way to know how to best take out a boss without failing a few moves first, and then looping back through the fight. I mean, some are so situational that Olivia has to give you a dang tutorial at the start of the boss fight just on how to engage with it. I just want to play the game. I want to wreck the boss. Is that too much to ask? I gotta do a tutorial every time? On my recent playthrough, I actually enjoyed the boss fights much more, because at the start of each I'd just look up a guide online of how to beat it, thus going into the brawl knowing exactly what to do and saving myself an abundance of time and frustration. This was better. Now I could focus on optimizing the best layout of the ring to accomplish all of my goals, and the system played out nicely. So, in theory, the bosses could be great bouts, but are let down by the trial and error nature of their gameplay. So yeah, the battle system isn't a good time for many of us, and is easily the largest cause of this game not being even more highly regarded than it already is. Most of my other complaints aren't as significant, but let's talk about just a few. The dialogue text is very slow and drags on repeat playthroughs. Olivia constantly interrupts you when exploring the overworld, and I personally hate the developmental dance scenes. I don't think the thousandfold arms are a particularly fun gameplay mechanic, and using the motion controls sucks. The game's economy is broken, you get so many coins. The stationary bosses have admittedly fantastic personalities, but I still hate that they're just a stapler and a tape roll and a scissor. I mean, come on, which bosses are better designed characters? Tubba Blubba and Hooktail, or colored pencils? Ugh. One thing I do love is the build up to the boss introductions. They're almost always hinted at or have an active role in the chapter prior to their actual first scene. For example, Tape has taped toads all over the sea tower, which is great foreshadowing. Hole Punch has punched holes in toads, and Scissors be cutting people up out there. Their dialogue is well written and they're all a fun time. I just wish they weren't stupid household items. I have some other mild nitpicks, but I think I'll leave it at just these for now. It may sound like I'm negative about the game, but I'm really not. Other than the battle system, which admittedly is half of the experience, I'm overall positive on this one. It's in the better half of the series after all. Sure, there are some pacing issues, and I wish the partners had even more depth and that you could, control them, play as them, but it's still a remarkably better game than Color Splash and marginally better than Super. When I was doing my chapters back and forth, I found myself excited to return to Origami King each and every time, but dreading a return to Super. Yeah, I never looked forward to the ring battle system, but the level design, situations, and general fun factor of Origami King was leagues above Super Paper Mario. And although the story isn't nearly as immaculate, to me, Origami King is just the better overall experience. And that's coming from someone that has great nostalgia for Super Paper Mario, so you can't call me biased. Well, actually, you can, and I am. I am nostalgia biased about the next few games, but that's another story. Well, we've made it to the big three. It all comes down to this: Paper Mario 64 and both versions of the Thousand Year Door. If you've been around for a while on this channel, you'll already know I tend to prefer Paper Mario 64 over TTYD, but has the remake changed that? Well, spoilers for the rest of this list, but not quite. I still think the original Paper Mario is the superior game, but we'll get to that soon enough. For now, we need to finally determine if the GameCube or Switch version of TTYD is better, and please, let me know which you prefer in the comments. TTYD has always been and continues to be a masterpiece. Both versions of the game boast a diverse cast of partners and characters, each complete with their own unique design and personality. The story is epic, emotional, and high stakes. The battle system is the best in the series, and the music is elite. I really love how it expands on the traditional Mario world so well by introducing all sorts of new characters, creatures, and costumes, but it never strays as far as Super Paper Mario does. I understand the level design is often scrutinized, but more than any other game in the series, it's the scenario building where it truly shines. There are so many wacky situations for Mario to find himself in, and each chapter has its own subplot that are often as well designed as the overall story. You're not just playing through the chapters, you're living them alongside the NPCs that inhabit these lively towns. You get to reunite Koops with his father, help the puny tribe reclaim their ancestral grounds, infiltrate a mysterious fighting ring, save the citizens of Twilight Town from becoming bacon, go on an epic adventure to an island of ghost pirates, help a dead toad reach its afterlife, look for General White, and wait, what was that last one? Ugh. Sure, there's some backtracking, and yes, the levels are mostly connected by pipe rather than being spread out across an explorable world, but the world building, scenarios, characters, battle mechanics, and emotional story more than make up for those flaws. So, which version is ranked third and which is ranked second? Well, I'm not gonna hyperfixate on comparing these two right now, because if you haven't already seen it, I recently did a video contrasting both versions of the game. I went over 10 things the remake does better and 7 it does worse than the classic GameCube version. In summary, I love the new quality of life features implemented into the remake. Reducing the excess of backtracking was pivotal to generating an even better game experience than before. There are 2 new boss fights that I won't spoil here, but both are a ton of fun. The art gallery is a novel inclusion as well. The game's remastered soundtrack is, for the most part, exceptionally good. The new themes for Magnus, the Punies, Excess Express, and Rogueport Sewers are incredible additions. I love how each area gets its own unique battle theme now, like in Origami King, and it's a nice touch how the Palace of Shadows battles retain the creepy overworld music rather than cutting to something high energy like in the original. The remake also modernizes the game with incredibly gorgeous visuals. The Tower of Riddles, Palace Tower, is stunning with its dynamic starry floors. Bogley Woods is breathtaking, Twilight Trail is mesmerizing, and the Excess Express at dusk is perfection. I mean, just look at the realistic lighting with the sun moving from one side of the train to the other throughout the day. Wow. The new character animations and designs are seamless with the old models and now include back sprites and loads of new reaction shots. You can beat up Beldam now. I really like that. I enjoy it. It gets me it gets me through the day, you know. I also I like smashing Lady Bow from time to time. The new character dialogue sound effects are fantastic, and all the additional or extended cutscenes and story moments are great. I mean, there's an X-Naut in the shower now. Mario has canonically seen a naked X-Naut and their X-Nuts. Talk about X-Naughty. The remake undoubtedly adds an abundance of charm to an already delightful game, and the developers took great care into delivering a near-perfect experience. Unfortunately, I'm not convinced it is the definitive version of the game just yet. I have some minor nitpicks about the remake, but none are as glaring as the slow text speed and menus. I know the text now makes speaking sounds, but if you repeat a conversation, you can speed it up, so why not just allow that all the time? Not to mention, you're no longer able to reverse text progression either. In my first playthrough, it wasn't the end of the world, but it's certainly going to make this version less than ideal for replays or speedrunning. Possibly even more annoying than the dialogue speed is the slow responsiveness of the menus and battle UI. The battle UI specifically feels incredibly laggy compared to the snappy responsiveness of the source material. I can't demonstrate this on screen, of course, but if you've played both, you know what I'm talking about. It can be pretty bad. In the GameCube version, you can quickly fly through battle menus before assaulting your opponent with well-timed action commands. It always felt so satisfying to speed through your selections instinctively and with absolutely no input lag. The controls were so tight and polished with no delay. But now, making your inputs is more tedious. There were countless times I'd select my move, and then when the next option popped up in the menu, I'd click A again, and nothing would happen. Like, the option is right there, I can see it, but the game refuses to respond to my command. The game is also quite a bit easier than before, and some of the reimagined pieces of music are subjectively inferior to the old versions, specifically Rock Hawk's theme, X-Naut Fortress, and the emotional We Believe in You Mario, which has been renamed to Supportive Voices from Afar for some reason. I don't like the heavy rock style that it now has, personally. The good news is you can easily swap to the original music with the Nostalgic Tunes badge, but the bad news is any entirely brand new music still takes priority over the old. So while this badge reverts back to 95% of the original music, there are nostalgic themes that will still be entirely absent regardless of using the badge. Hooktail's imposing introduction music is one such example, as it's been replaced by a new score completely. Another notable example is the tense danger music that no longer plays during the final staircase to the Shadow Queen's tomb, instead replaced by atmospheric hums. The nostalgic badge does not work here. None of these problems are that significant though, aside from the slowness of combat and dialogue. The only other real downside are the new sound effects. Many of the new sound effects are serviceable, but it's a shame there's no way to just enable the classic sounds instead. TEC's iconic text box pop-up sound has vanished, the Palace of Shadow is missing numerous creepy sounds from before, and the most glaring omissions are the original screams for the audience, as well as the Crystal Star scenes at the Thousand Year Door. The new sounds here are generic compared to the brilliance of the source material, so it's a shame to see them gone, and it's too bad we can't still turn them back on. But enough complaining, I think it's finally time I answer which version is better. Well, it's not a simple question, but I think I finally have an answer for you. I think that rather objectively, the remake is better for newcomers. It's also better for casual playthroughs where you just want to take your time, enjoy the vibrant world, become engaged with the characters, the story, and the emotion. It fulfills so much of what it needed to do, and I greatly enjoyed my experience with it. It's so good. However, the GameCube version is still the superior option for challenge runs, speed runs, quick replays, and fans that grew up with it. Due to its quicker interface, it won't feel as mundane to replay, even with the worse backtracking. It's more difficult and suitable for challenge runs, and while it may not be as pretty to look at, the original tunes and sound effects are there for classic fans to enjoy. I also think the original is a bit more atmospheric, especially due to the sound design. Ultimately, I don't think either version is perfect, and that's okay. It's nice that both exist, and I'm happy to still have a reason to rotate to the original from time to time. I think that together they offer one of the best gaming experiences in Nintendo history, and both are worthy of being called the better game. However, for my own personal opinion, what game is my favorite? Well, I guess since I have to commit, I'll go on the record by saying I prefer the original just barely more, and that the remake is my third-ranked game. Call me nostalgia blind, call me a dirty rotten Joe Pro, but don't call me Cammy Koopa, because that's not my name. Hey, I see you thinking about writing it in the comments. Stop that. What? You're still doing it. You're still thinking about it. Don't, just stop. Don't. Do not. No. Okay? Just don't. Thank you. So yeah, there's no doubt if I played the remake first, I'd probably find it way better than the original. It's the objectively better game, but this is my list, gosh dang it. So that leaves us with only one game remaining, and as you can see, nothing has changed for me. Paper Mario 64 continues to reign supreme as my favorite Paper Mario game and my favorite video game of all time. I mean, just check out the shirt and the stuff, the room in here. It's mostly Paper Mario 64 stuff. I love it. The first Paper Mario exudes charm. It gushes it everywhere like a flowing river of sheer joy. The characters, locations, story, music, it's all so adorable and fun, but can still be emotional, exciting, and riveting when it needs to be. One thing to note about this game is that its story and locations are more or less your standard Mario fare. Bowser has kidnapped Peach. Yay. There's a grassland, desert, forest, and ice world. Yay. I mean, the concepts on paper aren't revolutionary. As expected, the first game in the series played it safe. However, while the creative liberties were more restrained compared to later entries, it's the character work and designs that shine. I mean, Kooper is just a Koopa, and they're usually bad guys, but not our Kooper. He's the hardworking kid who has his own house, which in this economy is crazy, lives in a freaking village, and he's got a blue shell. He's a pretty cool dude. And Lady Bow, well, she's a homeowner too, but she's also introduced as an anti-hero rather than an ally. She has imprisoned a star spirit and won't help Mario out until he helps her out. And speaking of the Boos, their plight against Tubba Blubba plays out in such a charming manner. The writing in Chapter 3 is some of the best in the series. Visually, Paper Mario 64 is also my favorite by far, to be honest. Sure, it's an older N64 game, but it's held up so well, and I think it's the prettiest game on the console. The sprite-based characters are so cute, and Mario actually has more animations here than he does in the original TTYD. There are so many sprites for him. Locations like Shooting Star Summit are stunning, the unveiling of Dry Dry Ruins is so epic and well animated, and the game actually has dynamic lighting that casts shadows and highlights character models. Yeah, sure, the skyboxes aren't great, but they have their own sort of cute way about them. For real, if they ever remake this game, it really needs to maintain its storybook art style as opposed to the modern craft art style TTYD's remake used. Maryboo on Twitter did some art recently that I think perfectly encapsulates what an HD Paper Mario should look like, so I'll share that on screen here. The music might be my favorite of the series. I'll admit, many tracks are too repetitive, the sound font is limited, and there isn't as much complexity in its compositions as later games, but gosh dang it if there are some absolute bangers. Like, come on, Shiver Mountain? An absolute dream. In fact, most of Chapter 7's music is phenomenal. I'm also a huge fan of the Bowser's Castle music, the final battle theme, the Koopa Brothers battle theme, and many more. Oh yeah, and you can't forget about our fluffy little pal Huff and Puff. That cloud knows how to rock. Admittedly, 64's battle system is pretty archaic, as action commands for star moves had yet to exist, the audience had not yet been conceived, and partner abilities were fairly limited compared to Mario. Outside of the battle system, other disadvantages compared to later games are pretty mild. There's unfortunately no post-game, the locations aren't as creative, side quests aren't so great, the chapter scenarios aren't as involved or captivating as TTYD's chapters, and the NPCs aren't as unique as in TTYD. I mean, like, yeah, there's still plenty of unique Toads and Koopas and other characters, but many of them are also just generic Toads, and generic Koopas and generic other things. I also wish your partners had more to do in the story following their initial introduction, but unfortunately, most of them rarely even talk after their first chapter. On the other hand, there are way more things this game does better than TTYD, especially in the gameplay department. In fact, I did an entire video listing 10 ways Paper Mario 64 is better than The Thousand Year Door if you want to check that out, but I'll summarize the main points quickly. First of all, I think it's safe to say there's less backtracking in this game. I mean, the only real instances are mild amounts in Shy Guy Toy Box and Flower Fields. Compared to The Thousand Year Door, those are nothing. The level design is also much better. While there may not be any levels as novel and creative as the XS Express, the dungeon designs here are top quality, the overworlds are vast, and TTYD's dreaded hallway simulator complaints do not apply here. Unfortunately, many of TTYD's chapters are a collection of only a dozen or so game screens or rooms. Heck, some of them, like Chapter 3 and 6, have even less than that. Paper Mario 64, on the other hand, has a massive game world with an abundance of screens to explore. Jade Jungle is gigantic, Dry Dry Desert is huge, if a bit empty, and Chapter 7 is really expansive. And the best part is, nearly every location is directly connected to another, either by walking along a pleasant path, a terrifying path, taking a train, riding a magical shell, or maybe even, a tuna? Sure, you warp to Flower Fields and the Toy Box, but these warp mechanisms are at least dressed up and stylized. Only Shiver City is accessed by an actual pipe. It's so seamless and makes the world feel more real. Compare that to the Thousand Year Door, where nearly every chapter is accessed by an underground pipe. Speaking of underground and expansive areas, just compare Toad Town sewers to Rogueport sewers. Despite it being a massive abandoned city, Rogueport's underground has only a handful of screens, while Toad Town's is a massive labyrinth. I think this comparison demonstrates my point the best. A few other super brief advantages to 64. It's still the only game with the spin dash, my beloved. I love how the bosses are more connected to the main plot. I mean, they're all direct henchmen of Bowser, tasked to isolate and guard the Star Spirits. It makes the conflict feel a lot more personal than the Crystal Stars just happening to be held by random opponents. Speaking of the Star Spirits, they're far superior to the Crystal Stars, considering they're, actual characters with designs and dialogue and stuff. Lastly, maybe it's just me, but I think this is the series' most charming adventure. It's a subjective take, no doubt, and I do think TTYD's remake comes close thanks to all the new animations and cutscenes, but for me, 64 still takes home the title. It's so cozy. I mean, just look at this parade and these Shy Guys running around stealing stuff, and you don't get to bake a cake in any other game. That's pretty cool. Personally, I like adding some dirty dishwater and cleaner into the cake, just to poison Gourmet Guy. What he don't know won't hurt him, right? You're not gonna tell him. I'm not gonna tell him, so he's not gonna know. In closing, Paper Mario 64 is such a cute little game. It has a few flaws, but I think it's the most consistently great game in the series. It is a little short, but to be honest, I kinda like that about it. It's a nice game to pick up and beat over a weekend, and is fun to replay again and again and again and again without much commitment. Its chapters may not feel as engaging or climactic as Thousand Year Doors, but hey, I'll take the nostalgic charm over that any day. Come on, Nintendo, remake it now, please. It's my favorite game of all time, and it would be so easy to fix the very few flaws it does have and make it even better. Please remake it. Well, everyone, that is my list, but I would love to hear yours. I acknowledge I'm more than a little bit biased, so please just let me know your takes in the comments below. This went on a little bit longer than I thought. I guess I'm just feeling a little chatty today, just like our buddy Yaki. He's a good kid. I like that guy. Real cute. Real nice guy. He's a good key. He's a good key guy, kid. Well, anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the future for some more Paper Mario related conversations and discussions. Bye bye.